Miss Pitts, Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Hi. Miss Boyle is still on her way home from the office. She's stuck in, I guess you could say, snow traffic. So I will be, hopefully she'll be there soon, but it looks like I'll be starting the meeting with you. So,
Okay.
and then she'll come in. I don't know if Dr. Poteet is in yet or not, but she just called and said she doesn't know how much longer it's going to be. So
Okay.
I will.
Understandable.
Let's just hope she gets home safely.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
I mean, we all know Giselle probably was figuring that she didn't have a storage time, that she might have that she was lose her job. She called them up and said, hey, can you
I see Miss McClendon. Is she doing sign language? What is she doing? Oh, that's sign language.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello. Hello. Sorry to everybody if you can hear a movie in the background. My son is watching something. I apologize. I'm trying to figure out how to mute this.
If you go to the bottom of the screen, you got it.
I've never used WebEx, so this is new to me.
Good evening, Mr. Blake.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Blake.
You guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I see Ms. Thomas has joined us.
Mine just kicked me out. I had to get back in.
I can hear you and I can see you, Ms. Dredden.
Yeah, but I was kicked out. I had just got back in.
Okay. Good evening, Dr. Poteet.
Good evening.
Mrs. Pitts, everyone, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Boutique.
Good evening, Dr. Poteet.
Mr. Shaw, how are you, sir?
Very good, very good.
All right, are you ready to get this show rolling?
Yes, sir.
Good, good, good. We got a lot of information here tonight.
Awesome.
Good evening, Ms. Thomas. I can see you now.
Oh, good. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Thomas.
How are you?
Good evening, Ms. Martin.
Good evening.
Board members, I have 558. Is that okay?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Good evening, Miss Martin.
Good evening, Ms. Dredden. How are you?
Fine.
Good to see you.
Good to see you also.
think we're just waiting for Miss Mitchell to join us.
I am here. My picture is just frozen. My camera's not working very well, so I am frozen. But
Oh, okay. Good evening, Miss Mitchell.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Mitchell.
Good evening. I spoke to you all earlier. You just didn't know who I was, obviously.
Oh, okay. Well, lights, camera, action. It is 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. Board members, administration, and to our lovely Winslow Township family. Welcome to the Winslow Township Board of Education special board meeting. It is our town hall meeting. Today is Wednesday, December 16th, 2020, 6 p.m., and we are live streaming. Public notice of this meeting was given to all board members and associates and notices dated December 10th, 2020. Adequate and electronic notice of this public meeting has been provided specifying the time, place, and manner in which this meeting is being conducted. It was advertised in the Courier Post, posted in all schools, the administration office, the municipal building, the library, the Bud Dubel Center, Edgewood Acres, Elmtown, and the Winslow Township post offices. And this is our mission. The mission of the Winslow Township School District, a large, diverse, and growing community, is to educate all students to become independent, lifelong learners, critical thinkers, and caring and confident members of our community. The district, in partnership with the community and in the climate of cooperation and mutual respect, will provide an academic environment which values excellence and diversity, encourages students to strive for personal excellence, and assist them in acquiring the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to contribute positively to a rapidly changing world. And board members, since this is our town hall meeting, as we go into our roll call, if you care to give a wave or say a nice greeting, as we go through our roll call, please feel free. Ms. Chico, roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Present, and good evening, everyone.
Ms. Dredden,
Here, I want to say welcome everyone to the town hall meeting. We're so glad you're all here.
Ms. Martin,
Present. Good evening, everyone. Welcome.
Ms. McClendon,
Good evening, Winslow. Woo! Present.
Ms. Mitchell,
Present. Greetings, everyone.
Mr. Shaw.
It's at 2.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for taking the time from playing in the snow tonight and joining us.
Ms. Thomas,
Present. Good evening, everyone.
Ms. Peterson,
Present. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see so many out tonight.
Ms. Pitts.
Present, and thank you.
We have a
Hello, Ms. Pearson is present. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chico. Can we all take a minute and pause for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go into our district goals, I'm going to remind all who have joined us and ask for your patience. This technology isn't perfect, but we're going to treat it as if it's perfect. I'm going to ask everyone who has joined us, when you speak, will you please remove all extra sounds from your background so that we can all hear, okay? Ms. Mitchell, would you please read our district goals?
Yes, Madam President. 2020-2021 district goals. Number 1, student achievement. Continue to implement best practices for delivering instruction to students utilizing all available and appropriate instructional modes. This shall include A, ensuring articulation at all grade levels throughout the district. B, focus on classroom instruction at all grade levels. C, ensuring all students have equal access to equipment and resources needed to facilitate and promote student learning in any setting. D, evaluation and updating all district programs. E, accountability of all district staff. Number 2, continue to foster a positive school environment that is conducive to teaching and learning. A, focus on building relationships among staff that will result in increased learning and more effective instruction. B, promote creative instruction, training, and retraining. C, emphasis on collaboration with all district stakeholders. D, promote cultural competence throughout the district. E, teacher to student relationships. F, student to student relationships. And our final goal, number 3, market our strengths and achievements to all stakeholders to increase capacity for greater parent, caregiver, community support. A, continue with our public relations marketing plan. B, continue to work with the various advisory committees in the district. And C, examine communication methods utilized by the district.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
You're welcome.
And once again, to all who have joined us, welcome. And we look forward to receiving feedback from everyone, including our township residents, our parents, our guardians, and our caregivers of all of our students in our district. Additionally, our school district staff and current and former students all have been asked and invited to join this Board of Education special meeting for this open conversation. Please be advised that the purpose of this forum is to provide our district stakeholders with an extended opportunity to present feedback to the board on the reopening of our schools in January of 2021, feedback on the status of the HVAC work in the schools, feedback on the update on the COVID-19 cases in Camden County, and feedback on the outcome of the reopening of school parent survey, and of course, any other questions or concerns that you all may have about the current status of our schools. The Board of Education is committed to listening to all feedback and taking action as appropriate. Since this event was advertised as a public meeting and a quorum of the board is present, we are required by law to conduct a public portion. Since this virtual town hall is essentially a public forum, the entire meeting shall constitute a public portion for the purpose of compliance with the law. So therefore, at that time, I am going to turn this town hall meeting over to our moderator, Mr. John Shaw, who is also chair of our marketing committee. Mr. Shaw.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Madam President. just like to thank everybody for taking their time out of their evening for being with us tonight. First thing I'd like to ask, so that way we can give everybody the respect for when they ask their questions, is if you have your mic unmuted, can you please mute your mic?
Taste for pizza.
Next, Dr. Poteet, I believe we have, oh, and I also want to thank the marketing committee and Dr. Poteet for helping put this all together, because we've been trying to work on this for the past, since October. And we have over 113 people, and it's still climbing, so thank you everybody again. Dr. Poteet, I believe we have some questions that were submitted prior to the town hall. So if we can address them now, and then we'll start taking questions from the participants that are logged in.
Dr. Poteet, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
Okay, am I on now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
But I heard all of you tell me that you couldn't hear me. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first virtual town hall meeting. Mr. Shaw, I want to change the format just for a few minutes to give some updates as I would normally do. Now that we have everyone online, I think the first thing I would like to do is address the inclement weather that we presently have in front of us. As long as we are in a public health emergency, by law, a virtual day is a full day for us. And since we're in full remote, tomorrow, we don't necessarily have to have a snow day, and it will count toward our 180 days. However, there are some concerns that I need to make sure we all know. If the teachers, for example, cannot log in because they may have had a power outage or whatever the situation may be, then therefore they cannot provide instruction. If the students, depending on where you are, because this storm is moving quite fast and is changing every hour, and therefore it depends on where you live. But if the students cannot log in, then therefore they cannot receive the instruction. So if the teachers cannot provide instruction, the students cannot log in to receive instruction, then now we have a snow day, which means that we will have to make the day up. Now, at this point, I'm hoping that we will be able, teachers will be able to log in, the students will be able to log in, and this will be a regular full remote day for us. However, if we have any issues, an overwhelming majority of the teachers or students who cannot log in, then this will be considered a snow day, and we will have to make it up during our spring break. All right? Are we clear on that? So I'm hoping, again, that the storm doesn't get any worse. It appears that it is ever changing. When I came in, maybe about an hour ago, the roads were terrible. If that is the case tomorrow, all administrative offices will be closed, and I will be in touch with Mr. Gaskill, our department chairman of, our director of transportation, to determine whether or not we're going to put buses on the roads for those districts that we serve with other students. But at this point, tomorrow is a full remote day for us, hoping that all our teachers and students will be able to log in to receive full instruction. Moving right along.
Dr. Poteet, quick question before you go
Yes,
forward. How
sure.
would that be relayed as far as if it does become a snow day, how would that be relayed out to parents so that everybody knows what's going on?
It will have to happen the next day, for example, Friday or Monday, or I'll do a robocall, because the teachers, for example, will call their building principals and inform them that they cannot log in, they don't have services, And if that's the case, then those young people will not be served. So the following day, which will be Friday or on Monday, or possibly during our board meeting, we'll reiterate to the staff as well as to the community that because we had the overwhelming majority of the teachers or students could not log in, therefore Thursday would be considered a snow day and it will have to be made up. All right?
Okay. And one more thing, just before you go on, there was a question in the chat regarding what you just mentioned. Someone asked, but what if a quorum of teachers can log in?
Well, the overwhelming majority, for example, if we have less than 75% of our teachers logging in, then that will be considered a majority, and therefore that day will not be considered a full day. All right. Now, you may have, for example, depending on where people live, if you have 2, 3, 4, 5, very small number of teachers can't log in, then we will still consider tomorrow a full remote day and we'll get credit for that day. But if you have an overwhelming majority of teachers can't log in, 75%, for example, then it will be considered a snow day because instruction was not provided to the majority of our schools.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Okay, excuse me, Dr. Poteet, before you continue, excuse me again, looking at the chat, one of our callers, I believe it's Sonia Saab, is saying that she's having a bit of trouble hearing you. Ms. Saab, are you still having that trouble? You can share, I can see you. You can, yeah, she's.
A lot of noise in the background.
They're talking about snow days. If a teacher can't log in because they're having issues for some reason, that's the third part.
Yeah, I'm going to ask everyone, please, if you would, if you're going to be joining us, please mute your mics if you're talking, because we're picking up conversations that people are having with others. So please mute until, so that we won't have a lot of interference with conversations. And I see Ms. Saab, is the expression on her face is, I'm afraid she still can't not hear us as well. Ms. Saab is smiling. Can you hear us now? Okay, she said yes.
We're gonna clean it up, Jeff. I'll clean it up.
Okay, Dr. Poteet.
Okay. Now, Mrs. Pitts, we are in the process. Right now, we're in the middle of inclement weather. You may have some connectivity issues out there. It may not necessarily be because you can't hear me. Some people may have some problems with their devices at home or whatever it may be. I know this isn't the best circumstances to have our virtual meeting, but I'm not sure how much time you want to be able to devote to that particular issue, Mrs. Pitts, because it may vary depending on where people are.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Poteet.
All right. Now, what I am picking up, Mrs. Pitts, so that everyone know, the participants, our parents and people in the community who have logged in, it is imperative that you mute your mics because I can hear a lot of voices and feedback. So it would be in all of our best interest if you're not speaking, if you would mute your mics, and I think that would help everyone be able to hear. At least it will improve our ability to hear. All right. Why don't I move forward? I would like to give you the COVID-19 updates as of today. I'll give you a little more information today because of our virtual town hall meeting. And I felt it was important that everyone at least be on the same page, particularly when we speak of the COVID-19 in Camden County, in which Winslow Township is a part of. Today, the positive cases in Camden County, there were 260. That brings the total positive cases in Camden County to 24,712. In Winslow Township, there were 23 positive cases today in Winslow Township. That brings Winslow Township's total to 1,737 positive cases in our township. Fortunately, today there were no deaths. Thank God for that. But unfortunately, in Camden County alone, there have been 675 deaths due to COVID-19. That's just another way for us to understand that this is a serious illness, this is a serious virus, and everyone should be helping each other by doing those things that are necessary to keep all of us safe. And that is, of course, wearing your mask properly, social distancing, and doing the things that are necessary to make sure that everyone in our households, as well as everyone we come in, are safe. Moving right along to our HVAC update. And as you recall, at our last meeting, I spoke to you about there were 44 motors in our schools, throughout the schools, that came out of the unit ventilators that needed to be serviced. This week's report gave us an update, and I'm prepared to give you that information. Let me just reiterate for those of you who are joining us for the first time. As the company CM3, who's been going through all of our schools, repairing all the unit ventilators, which is responsible for exchanging clean air in our classrooms and throughout the school, they gave us a report and they stated, for example, at school number 1, there were 5 unit ventilators that had motors that were in need of repair. In school 2, there were 9 motors. School 3, there were none. School 4, there were 5. School 5, there were none. School 6, there were 6. Middle school, there was 10. And the high school, there was 9, for a total of 44. We have, of those 44, 28 of those motors will be available to us, being repaired by the end of January. 16 of those motors will be available to us within the first, no later than the second week of January. They are still working every day. They are working evenings also to get all the other work that needs to be done in addition to the motors repaired. So at this point, that's where we are with our HVAC systems, which takes me to my next point that I would like to make. And I would also like to say to the community that I will be making a recommendation tonight to the school board to continue with, excuse me, I don't want to be like President-elect and keep clear my voice during my presentation. That was a joke, folks. That was a joke. Stay with me. Stay with me. But anyway, I will be making a recommendation this evening to the school board that we continue with full remote instruction until the end of the second marking period and the beginning of our third marking period, which is February the 1st, because the marking period ends January the 29th. That will give us an opportunity, of course, to address any quarantine matters that may occur after our winter break, and also give us an opportunity to address what we normally have seen after a holiday, which is a surge in positive cases of COVID-19. Right now, we are still, of course, in a public health emergency. The positivity rate in Winslow Township, as well as Camden County, has went down to 14% positivity rate. The Thanksgiving surge is over. And of course, they are anticipating a surge after our winter break, which is Christmas and New Year's. This recommendation will give us an opportunity to address the repairs by our CM3 contractor. It will also give us an opportunity to put us in a safer environment after those initial surges after the holiday. So I will be making that recommendation to the board this evening to maintain full remote instruction until the end of the second marking period and the beginning of the third marking period. Okay. Next, I would like to address share with you the return to school parent survey. Last board meeting, I gave you just the total numbers, and I'll do the same, but I'll give you a little more information so you'll know how each of the schools fared in terms of responses, and each of the areas, which was hybrid instruction, full remote, and unsure. We had a total of 963 responses for hybrid instruction. School number 1 had 61 responses, school 2, 62 responses, school 3, 63, school 4, 104, school 5, 124, school 6, 110, the middle school, 179, and the high school, 262 responses for a total of 963 who responded for hybrid instruction. For full remote instruction, we had a total of 1,363 responses. School 1, 72, school 2, 74, school 3, 102, school 4, 100, school 5, 186, school 6, 168, middle school, 264, high school, 397 responses for full remote, for a total of 1,363. In the category of unsure, there were 505 responses. School 1, 30 responses. School 2, 27. School 3, 33. School 4, 42. School 5, 74. School 6, 45. Middle school 99, high school 155, for a total of 505 responses, for a grand total of 2,831 responses from our parents for our reopen the school parent survey. The reason we were able to eliminate multiple responses because we done it by school, by grade, and if your name appeared more than once for one school and you did not have multiple children there, we were able to minimize any of those and eliminate any repeated votes or tally. So therefore, 2,831 we felt was an excellent response to the survey, and it also gave us an opportunity to get a feel for where we were in terms of those responses.
Dr. Poteet.
Yes.
Dr. Poteet, the figures that you just gave out to us,
yes.
Will it be possible that these figures will be posted on our website?
We can post those on the website, Mrs. Pitts. That's not a problem.
Thank you, Dr. Poteet.
Okay. So that you know about those responses, and I want to thank the community for providing us that information. So I would like for you to know that because the responses were so well done, the month of January is going to be very important to us because now we are getting closer than we ever had before to opening of schools. January the 6th is the interim reports, and the interim reports, of course, gives us an opportunity to provide our parents with their academic information of their child so you know where they are as we go closer to the end of the marking period. We are going to ask all of our parents that when you go in on January the 6th to Parent Portal, we're going to ask that you do one additional thing for us. You're going to find on your Parent Portal a survey to indicate whether or not your child will be attending school during the hybrid model or full remote. There will not be any unsures at this time. We need to shore up our numbers so that the building principals and the teachers will have accurate classroom counts. And for those of you who have changed your mind from full remote to hybrid, and those who may have changed your mind vice versa, and those who are unsure, now is the time you're going to have to make a decision. So we felt that since you were going in on January the 6th to check your child's progress or interim reports, that you will take the time to indicate to us whether or not your child will be attending hybrid or full remote. And we will ask that you do that for 2 weeks. And by January the 13th, we will bring closure to it, which gives us enough time to prepare for the opening of school during the first marking period. So we're going to ask our teachers and administrators to take advantage of this opportunity, tally that information so that we can have accurate counts. And it also gives parents now an opportunity to let us know whether or not your child will be attending the hybrid model or whether you're going to remain full remote. All right? That's important. That's crucial because this gives us an opportunity for the first time to get accurate numbers. And hopefully, ladies and gentlemen, by January 13th, you would have made up your mind one way or the other whether or not your child will be coming in or whether they're going to stay full remote, because we really need to get these numbers to the point where our class size is and we can start preparing to open our schools and know how many young people will be participating. So we ask that you continue to do so.
Doesn't sound like you're going back after Christmas.
All right. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Shaw, I would like to respond to the questions that were submitted. And of course, when we open up for question and answers, if anyone have any questions in reference to anything that I've already stated, please feel free to do so. But at this time, Mr. Shaw, I am going to respond to the questions that were submitted in advance. Okay? The first question is, I am very worried about reopening schools in general, but especially on January the 4th, with the numbers of COVID cases in stage 3. It would be best if we would hold off until the quarantine period is over and after the winter break. So I've already answered that question in part. There were other parts of the question said, the school district may consider, no, let me back up, I'm sorry. I'm also concerned about going back to, in general, during the winter months, it will be very difficult to keep windows open in classrooms and have the students stay warm at the same time. The school district might consider altering the dress code policy to allow students to wear hoodies or sweaters or other types of colors or clothing. In this unprecedented time, so many of our families cannot afford to buy uniforms for the children at the same time they're trying to put food on the table and gifts for the holidays. Well, first of all, the schools will not be opening on January the 4th if the board approves my recommendation tonight. Of course, during the winter months, we will not be asking teachers to open up windows during class time because think about it, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at school the same way at your homes, and I'm more than certain you do not have windows open in your homes during the winter months. However, the uniforms will be expected, and I am not recommending to the board that we change our dress code policy. Hoodies will not be accepted, but we do have sweaters in our dress code policy where young people can wear sweaters as part of their uniform. But we will not be altering, I will not be recommending to the board that we alter our dress code policy. The next question, I'm concerned about amount of time students will be spending on the computer at home once hybrid begins. They will now be expected to be on the computer from 7:19 to 1:30, which appears that this parent must be a high school parent, 5 days a week in the high school, and I assume the other schools will be following a full-day schedule. Research has shown that this is not conducive for children at any age. Will an amended schedule, such as a half day, be used to avoid computer fatigue and student decreased performance be implemented? First of all, the school day is the same, will be the same when we go back to school as it is now. The time will not change. We will not be altering the school day. It will not be changed to a half day. I don't see a student spending more time in front of their computer because we have implemented our hybrid model. As a matter of fact, it may be a lesser amount of time because the students will be in school. Every student in that district that participates in the hybrid model will be in school 2 days a week. So at this point, you're receiving face-to-face instruction. So therefore, I don't anticipate making any changes in the school day, and there should not be any increase in computer time, face-to-face computer time with our students.
He's talking about if we go back hybrid, the kids who are on remote are going to be on the computer less, like because it's not live instruction.
Excuse me, we can hear your response. Would you mute your mic and we'll have an opportunity for parents to participate, but if you would mute your mics, I would appreciate it. And if there's a clarification of anything I've stated, we will give you an opportunity to get involved, okay? The next question, have air conditioners been installed in school 5 or the middle school? During the warmer months, it is unbearable. I don't see how the children are able to focus. I spent 2 hours in school 5 for a parent-teacher introduction in September, and I literally felt like it was going to pass. I was going to pass out. The only sort of circulation in the classrooms came from the fans that the teachers brought themselves. And if they're not industrial fans, then it still is extremely hot in the classrooms. How can air conditioners be implemented? Also, will the teachers switch classes or will the students still be required to switch? Are the temperatures going to be taken when the students arrive each day? Well, there are a lot of questions in that paragraph, and let me start from the top. Air conditioners have not been installed at school 5 or the middle school. When the time comes, it is the intent of the school district to fully air condition those buildings. However, it will be done as we have planned along with our operating budget. However, if the community want this to happen as soon as possible, then if the community agrees to a referendum where additional money will be placed in our operating budget or a tax increase, then that's how those kinds of things can happen. Other than that, we are planning to do some changes in our ventilation system next summer. For example, the high school, all the ventilation.
Yeah, I probably can't see it here.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, please mute your mics because we're getting a lot of feedback from inside of your homes. But the example I was giving this summer of 2021, all the unit ventilators will be replaced in the high school, and those ventilators will be heat and air conditioning. So we'll at least be able to do the high school first, and then as our budget is able to do it, then we'll do the others. The ventilation systems at the high school to have air and heat, we're talking anywhere in the neighborhood $3 million, and it is costly, and that's why we're in the situation we're in now, because a lot of this work is very costly. The students will be switching classes, the teachers will not. So we are going to be operating school as we normally would at the high school. The teachers will remain in their classrooms. The students will be passing from class to class. We do not anticipate, nor are we recommending through our reopening of school plan that was approved by the state in September, or excuse me, in August. Temperatures will not be taken every day for the students. We're asking the parents to self-monitor their students. And if a child is sick, we're asking that you do not send him or her to school, but we're asking you to support us in that effort. The next question.
Excuse me, Dr. Poteet?
Yes.
Could I just ask a question? Do we have many more questions that folks have sent in to read?
Well, there's quite a few, Mrs. Pitts, but if you prefer that we change the process and do something else, then we can do that.
Ms. Pitts, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Dr. Poteet, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, because we're getting questions in the chat room. So I think that we should take some of those questions from the chat.
Okay, so, all right. Then why don't we do this, Mr. Shaw? I agree. We'll take the questions from the individuals who are there. And if we get to the point where we've answered all those questions, then I can go back to the ones that were submitted. Does that work for you?
Okay.
Yes.
Now, hold on, Mr. Shaw, can you hear me? Because Ms. McClendon said that she could not hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And so here's what I'm asking, that our host mute everyone. Our technology person mute everyone because we're going into a session where we are going to begin to answer the chat questions, and folks will be able to verbally, audibly present their questions. Is that okay with you, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, Madam President, it is.
Okay. Oh, Dr. Poteet, are we okay now?
Yes, I'm good. I'm flexible,
Okay.
Mrs. Pitts, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Mr. Shaw,
Yes, ma'am.
you can proceed.
Ms. Saab, would you like to answer would you like to ask your question, or would you like me to ask your question? Because I see you have it in the chat.
Mr. Shaw, the question's in the chat. Why don't you just read it?
Okay.
And I think that'll
Trying to go back to it. She wants to know, will there be plastic in the hallway or a one-way hallway system to minimize contact?
There will not be plastic in the hallways. And as a matter of fact, that will be a fire hazard and will not pass any type of inspection by a fire department where you divide in hallways by plastic. There will be direction arrows in the hallways as best we possibly can. It's more feasible at your lower grade levels than it is at the upper grades. However, in the high school, the traffic is always one way or the other. So at this point, we will try to direct traffic as best we possibly can. So my response will be yes, there will be arrows, hoping that people are staying to the right on going and coming as we best we possibly can. But at this point, we're going to try to minimize as much movement as we possibly can. But in our larger schools, high school, middle school, that's almost impossible. But we'll do our very best to make sure that we can keep our young people safe. Now, social distancing is expected, even in the hallways. So again, we're going to do what we can possibly do to make sure that our young people are safe, but we will be maintaining traffic as best we possibly can.
Okay, excuse me, Dr. Poteet, Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
I'm just going to interrupt for one more minute. I'm looking at the chat, and it seems that the community is saying that they cannot unmute themselves.
I was going to say something about that next.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Aponte, or whoever's in charge of our meeting tonight as the administrator, is there any way to unlock the unmute function so that way when our community has a question, they can just unmute themselves? Because right now their mute buttons are locked.
Mr. Shaw, I think if everyone would, work with us and keep their mics muted until they're ready to speak, help, because I think when you do it from the host perspective, it's either going to mute them or unmute them. It's one way or the other. Okay?
Right.
Is there another question in the chat, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, it has to do with the cohorts, I believe at the high school. When we go back, how will the grouping go? Will it be alphabetical order, by grade, or randomized?
It is the same order that you had back in August and September. The information that the parents receive will indicate to you what cohort your child is in. Nothing has changed at this point. That is still the same that you received back in September. If you've forgotten, or if you have questions, just call your building principal and they will clarify that for you. But they are in cohorts, and it's the same cohorts they were given back in September. The difference at the high school now, so everyone would know, every student in the high school will have 2 days of hybrid instruction as opposed to one that was initially approved. So if your child's in the hybrid model, they will have 2 days of face-to-face instruction and 3 days of remote. Everyone in the district should have 2 days of face-to-face instruction if you are a part of the hybrid model. Mr. Shaw?
I'm looking to make sure I didn't miss any questions further back. No, my computer is moving slow. I didn't see anybody else post.
I see one question.
Okay.
It says this may have already been addressed. So if anyone in the chat knows, if we pick hybrid, are we allowed to go full remote at any time? No, you cannot go at any time. If you are in the hybrid, January will be the time for you to switch to full remote. You can only switch at the end of the marking period. For example, if in the 3rd marking period coming up, you select hybrid, you must stay in that hybrid model for the entire marking period. If you choose to go full remote at the end of that marking period for the 4th marking period, you may do so at that time. But you cannot go back and forth every other week because it's a nightmare for the teachers to try to keep track. It's very disruptive. And at this point, we're trying to make the transition from one model to the next as smooth as possible. That's why in our plan from the very beginning, we recommended that whatever model you select, you must stay in that model for the full marking period.
Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to ask?
Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was good.
It's Ms. Martin. Did you see the one about my son is in the special needs class and
No,
we have
I did not
opted?
see it.
Okay, my son is in the special needs class and we have opted full remote for him. Will we be able to keep him full remote for the rest of the school year?
Yes. Yes. It is, and that's the choice of the parent. If you want to stay full remote for the entire school year, you may keep your child home for the entire school year and receive those services.
Mr. Shaw, one more.
Yeah, okay. If you don't mind reading it.
No problem. Safety is great to hear about. But what about telling us about the education plan? How will the teachers be able to address in-person and remote learners?
We are going to be live streaming from the classrooms every day. It may not be all day, but the teachers will be live streaming. Those students who are on full remote will have face-to-face contact with their teachers on a daily basis. Again, full remote as it is now, you're there the entire period, all day, but it may not necessarily be the entire period, but you will be in communication with the teacher every day. Now, and of course, as a reminder in our plan, Wednesday is a full remote day for the entire school district. We have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, full remote on Wednesday. But we are prepared to do live streaming every day for the full remote students so that we make sure we maximize the opportunities for those young people to get what they need during the school day and hopefully for the remainder of the school year.
Dr. Poteet?
Yes, sir.
The next question is, what are the steps if there's an outbreak in the school?
If there is an outbreak has to be defined according to the CDC guidelines. An outbreak is defined as if there is 2 or more students who contract the virus from one single source, that is considered an outbreak. And if we have an outbreak, then that school will close down for a period of 14 days. After that outbreak, as my colleagues have been doing, and I'm quite sure those of you who have friends in other school districts, that's what they've been doing pretty much all year. When they have outbreaks, they close down for 2 weeks, they open back up, they close down for 2 weeks, they open back up, because it's a little difficult to control those outbreaks. But at this point, it is the same thing. Let me give you a little more detail about the process. If we have a student or a teacher who tests positive for COVID, and we can connect more than one person to that teacher, then therefore it is considered an outbreak. I am responsible for contacting the Camden County Department of Health. Camden County Department of Health will come in, they will do the contact tracing, they will be giving us the direction from that point on as to what to do, but we will shut down once it is confirmed as an outbreak. The school will shut down, the contact tracing will take place, and then after the 14-day period, we will resume face-to-face instruction for those students who's a part of the outbreak. Who's a part of hybrid. Excuse me.
Can you just restate when a change can be made at mid-marking period? Because I'm not sure this parent heard you.
Okay, you can only change from one model to the other 2 weeks prior to the end of the marking period. That's when we need to get that paperwork. All you have to do is go online and indicate that, well, the form is there. All you have to do is fill your name out, your child's name, fill it out. The building principal will receive it and we'll know, but it must be done at least 2 weeks before the beginning of the next marking period. If you want to do it one day before the marking period, it will not be accepted. At a minimum, you must register your child to change from one model to the next at least 2 weeks before the end of that marking period. Then you can transition into the other model.
Okay. Next question says, first, thank you for having this meeting. Right now, our students are receiving full 5 days of live instruction. That quality has been fantastic at the high school level. I have concerns about moving us down to a lower number of hours of instruction if we choose to stay all remote. Will those students that are remote have a full 5 days of instruction live? These classes are critical at this level. How do we ensure that if we stay at least at an equal level that the students are receiving today. Can you explain what remote will actually look like in more detail?
Yes, the classroom teacher, we are going to ask that the students who are face-to-face, they don't necessarily have to bring their computers or their Chromebooks. The teacher will be providing direction from the classroom to those students at home. You'll be able to hear the same direction that the students are getting in the classroom. They will provide those students at home with the assignments. And at that point, those students will go on and continue whatever those assignments are. It will be very similar to what we are today. We don't expect the teacher to be talking directly to the computer all day during that entire period. There's going to be times, just like in any classroom, even in a hybrid model, the teacher isn't going to be providing direction the entire 45 minutes. At some point, those students will continue with that lesson and be working independent. Those students who are at home at full remote will be doing the same thing. Basically, what the teacher will be doing from the classroom is providing your child the same direction and the same instruction that the student is getting in the classroom. And that's how the live streaming will work for the students at a home that's in the full remote program.
Next question says, can you post the dates for the marking periods somewhere on the website?
Yes, now they are on, the marking periods are already on the website. If you go to the school calendar on the district's website or on your school's website, the district's calendar is there. And if you look at the district calendar, it will indicate to you the beginning and the ending of the marking periods, interim reports, and so forth. So that information is there. So check your website, check the district's website, check the calendar. It is there.
Next question says, what professional development have teachers received on how to implement the various digital platforms that are available for remote instruction? I'll give you that question first because it's a two-parter.
Sure. First of all, the professional development for remote instruction started back in March of 2020 of this school year. We also provided professional development for our teachers during the summer months for those who wanted to take advantage of it. And the first 4 days in September 1st through the 4th, professional development was provided to all teachers. So there's been a litany of professional development for our teachers. Therefore, think about it. How could the teachers be prepared to implement those platforms that we presently have in place if there was no training provided? So there was a lot of training provided. The Google training, we're talking about getting started with Google Classroom, Google Classroom Meet, tips and techniques for Google Classroom, Google Chrome extensions, interactive classroom using Bitmoji and slides, screen classify, Raz Kids, Class Dojo, Remind, Seesaw, Link It, Into Reading, to name a few. So there was a lot of training available to our teachers. And if we have additional requests from staff, depending on the number, to date, all of the requests have been met. And I'm satisfied with the training that our teachers have received to implement remote instruction.
Okay. Next part of that question is, do you know why this Winslow School District does not have various Google Meet features such as the poll, breakout rooms, and Q&A?
Well, I think that what we have now in place meets the needs of our students and staff. There are a lot of platforms out there that we're not using, but we're using those that we feel meet our needs and meet the needs of our students. So At this point, as far as I'm concerned, anything that was requested of us, we put in place. So it's just a matter of choice. I mean, it's a lot of platforms out there, as I stated, that aren't being used, but we can't use them all. But the ones we do have in place, I'm satisfied with what we're doing. And at this point, based on the feedback I'm receiving from the parents, they too have been satisfied with the level of instruction and the platforms we presently have in place.
Next question, how does the district plan on keeping staff safe? Teachers will be required to monitor students during lunch when students will be unmasked. How will schools ensure the safety of the students and staff at that time? There will also come there was also some discussion about the students eating in the classrooms. Is this still on the table? If yes, when will?
Well, first of all, I would like to say, just for everyone who's logged in tonight, the reopening of school plan that was submitted to the state and approved is still on our website. It would be helpful if you would go back, revisit that plan, because nothing has changed. The only revisions that have changed are the minor ones, such as 2 days of hybrid instruction at the high school. We've made some minor changes for food service in terms of deliveries, those minor things, but everything that we put in place back in September is still in place. Nothing has changed. Now, as far as the cafeteria is concerned, there are going to be much smaller number of children or students in the cafeteria. We are not going to have that many students. That's why the hybrid model was in place, so that you can have smaller classrooms, smaller activities, smaller cafeteria during lunch. Those students will be social distancing in the cafeteria. You will not have as many students at the table. Yes, they have to take their mask off to eat. There will be adequate staff in the cafeteria to make sure that takes place. But let me reiterate something, because this is the same question that came up once before to me about the mask and what are we going to do if the students don't wear the mask. Wearing the mask is not a discipline problem or a discipline issue. The mask is a safety and a health issue. You have to wear your mask if you want to make sure that the people around you are safe as well as yourself. So we're talking about a health and safety issue. We are going to enforce students wearing their masks and wearing their masks safely and properly. Properly means that the mask must cover the nose, the mouth, and the chin at all times. And as far as we are concerned, we feel that we have things in place to implement safety in our schools. The numbers are much smaller, so we're not going to be in any overcrowded situations at any time in our schools. So I'm comfortable in saying that we're going to do our very best. But let me emphasize this. If someone happens to become infected by COVID-19, it's not because the school district failed to do its job. There are, as I read before, in this community, 1,700 cases of COVID-19, and there have been outbreaks in school districts. There are students I know that there are quite a few students in our school district who've been affected by COVID-19, and they're not even in school. So it's not about what you do in school only. It's also about what you do at home and your social life, because you can become infected with COVID-19 at home, and you will be the one, if you came to school because you're asymptomatic and didn't know it, be responsible for infecting other students. So just because someone, and I need to emphasize that, just because someone is affected by COVID-19 does not necessarily mean that the school district failed to do what it was supposed to do. Anyone can become infected by COVID-19, and it doesn't necessarily have to happen in the schools itself. But we are going to do everything we human possibly can do to make sure that the staff and students are safe. That's why we're in full remote now, because the board has agreed that we need to take the necessary steps to make sure that our schools are safe.
Um, Next question. The recommendation for special needs was 4 days in-person instruction. Will we be able to keep our son full remote for the entire year, even if the rest of the class is not?
Yes, yes, yes. That is the decision of the parent. If you want to keep your child full remote for the remainder of the school year, that is a decision you can make. Whether the child's special ed, general ed, etc., that is the decision of the parents, and will be honored by the school district.
There's one question that I'm gonna have to ask the parent to or community member to ask this one themselves. I'm gonna read it from the chat, but I'm gonna have to ask them to help out. Why will it not be the entire period? So if they can unmute and clarify this.
How you doing? What I asked that question originally when Dr. Poteet had stated that the instruction, the online or remote instruction would occur, but it wouldn't occur the entire period. And I think he further explained that. So I'm assuming that you were saying that the teachers won't be speaking directly to the students the entire time. But I just wanted to confirm that they're going to be online with the students the entire time so that they can communicate with them if necessary.
Yes, yes. Now the student, once the teacher gives the child the directions, just like the students in the classroom, they may be required to do some seat work. And I mean, that's what school is about. It's not necessarily the teacher driven. It is also just giving the students whatever direction, reviewing and going over whatever it may be. And then the students at that point will carry it on from there. And that's the same thing will happen with the students who are home remote. The teacher will give you direction. The teacher will explain. Let's say if they're in a math class, the teacher will review whatever the math lesson, whatever needs to be done, and then they will allow the students to work independently. I'm also going to ask that all of our students take advantage of the time we have at the end of each day. If you have any questions, you want to communicate with your teacher, you can send in questions to the teacher so that we can continue with that communication. We are going to, again, do our very best to make sure that our students who are at home stay in touch with the teacher. And if you can recall, we have come a long way since the implementation of our plan, because initially we were talking about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but at this point we're now able to say we can do live streaming every day. So I'm comfortable enough to say that our teachers are going to do their very, very best to make sure that the students who are home for full remote aren't shortchanged.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. I think the next question is going to be another confirmation answer. Did I hear correctly? Teachers will be teaching both hybrid and full remote students at the same time?
Yes. As a matter of fact, people give examples all the time by using other school districts. All the school districts across the state been doing it since September. So it's not a task that is insurmountable or something that cannot be done. It can be done. It's been proven. And I know our teachers will be able to do it and capable of doing it and have shown that it is possible. So yes, they'll be doing it at the same time.
Next question. So if I have two kids going full remote, both in the same school, same grade, but two different teachers, the school only allowed one computer per household. How would I be able to make this work with only one computer and having to live stream two classes?
I think that's a question that you can call your building principal, find out, explain to him or her what that issue is, and we'll try to work that out with you. Again, that cannot necessarily happen in every family. We have tried to address those families of the greatest need first, based on the information we had available to us. But I'm not going to be able to say we can do it for every family. But for those families who absolutely need that support, we will try to accommodate you. So I would ask the parent who submitted that question to call his or her building principal tomorrow if not tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, depending on what our weather does and whether or not, people will be in the building. But that's a conversation he or she needs to have with the building principal. Okay?
All right. Next question. There was a report out on stats for Camden County and Winslow COVID positivity numbers. What are the positivity numbers for our Winslow school district?
They are the numbers are not done by district. They're done by county. And if you speak directly, as we do with the Department of Camden County Department of Health, they'll be able to give you by township, but they will not be able to give it to you by school. For example, I have received numerous calls because it was Winslow Township, but the students didn't go to school in our school district. They went to either choice school, they may have gone to one of the schools where we bus children to. So they don't do it by district. They only do it by township, and that's only by request, but more than likely, as I have been giving you, by county. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought. By county, but not by school districts.
This one's a high school related question. If we move to cohorts, are teachers teaching the same lessons twice a week, once to cohort A and then to cohort B, or will this set up as a regular full week, just with cohorts in person getting that 2-day instruction in person versus online?
Well, the person who in the hybrid, on Monday, you're sitting in front of the teacher, you're going to get a lesson. On Tuesday, you're going to get a different lessons, just like going to school on a regular basis. Now, the students who are coming in on Thursday and Friday may get a different lesson because it's a continuation. Because now the students who were home Monday and Tuesday are now in school on Thursday and Friday, and the students who are in school on Monday and Tuesday are at home. So it's just flip-flopping. The lessons will continue to progress. It's not a repeat of the lesson. It's a progression. However, the teacher has to make that designation depending on whether or not the students were able to grasp what that lesson was, because he or she has to determine whether or not they need to reteach that lesson, not because of lack of planning, but for, let's say, lack of understanding, or if the students weren't able to grasp it, then you reteach that lesson. But I would anticipate that the lessons would change every day, the same way it would be if they were in the regular school situation, in school 5 days a week. So nothing is going to change. And one of the things I want to continue to reiterate to our parents, even though we are in this situation, hybrid or full remote, the process of teaching has not changed. We are functioning as we normally would do, as best we possibly could under the circumstances. But the process of teaching has changed. So our students will be getting their lessons as they normally would, through a progression every day.
With the comment being made for parents' choice, remote versus in person, what if there is a family member or student who becomes exposed, has to quarantine? How does that family go from in person to remote based on your earlier comment?
Well, if a person have to quarantine, then they are full remote for the whole time, for the entire time that they're quarantined. After that quarantine, if they were in a hybrid model, then they can return to school.
Have the teachers been consulted with the new proposed model? How can the teacher give remote students any individual FaceTime when they are in the classroom?
By sitting at their desks, just like we are doing right now. And I'm quite sure all of you can hear me. So I am talking and everyone can hear me, just like the students in the classroom, whether there's 9 or 10 students in the classroom and 9 or 10 students at home, everybody is receiving instruction at the same time. So that's how simple it is, and that's how effective it could be. Then when the teacher gets up from the desk to go over and do some one-on-one or small group or whatever the teacher may be doing, using, of course, social distancing. The student who's at home is still, working independently. And at some point, the teacher may come back to the computer or the laptop to reiterate what they're doing, what's going on. So that's how it's done. And it can be done effectively. And it has been done all over the country at this point, because that's the only way it can be done, to live stream as much as possible.
I just want to take a second to thank the person who posted the link for the district calendar in the chat.
Okay.
Next question. Just to clarify, high school students will be at their computer from 7:19 to 1:38 instead of 7:19 to 12:47 as they are now once we go back.
Excuse me?
It says, just to clarify, high school students will be at their computer from 7:19 to 1:38 instead of 7:19 to 12:47 as they are now once we go back.
Here's the time of the student day will not change. The student day will remain the same, 7:19 to 1:38. The student day remains the same. How much time he or she spends in front of their computer will be based on that level of instruction. For example, I do not expect the students who are in school during the hybrid model to be sitting in front of a computer. I mean, it's face to face, and we have other means. They have whiteboards, they have textbooks. There are a lot of things they can be doing in that classroom. I do not want young people or our students bringing their computers back and forth. The computers or Chromebooks that we gave the students must stay home the days that they're in school, so that teacher is going to monopolize on the face-to-face instruction while they're there. And those students at home, of course, will be on their computers. But at this point, it's no different than what we already have. I'm assuming at this point that it may be lesser time for those who are in hybrid model, as well as maintaining what we're doing now for those in full remote.
The next question is you just answered that next question that's in the chat. So if that person doesn't mind, I'm going to skip that question.
Start over because I already did.
Next question. Can everybody please mute? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would mute your microphones. Hello. If you would mute your microphones, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Shaw.
Next question. If a child is required to quarantine because of a potential contact in or out of school, will they be allowed to attend school virtually during that period?
Yes. That's the requirement. Once you quarantine, the only way you can receive your work and not be marked out and fall behind is that student automatically becomes virtual.
Okay. If I am understanding you correctly, students will receive virtual learning both class and at home due to social distancing. If students and staff are to keep social distance and everything is still virtual, why is a rush to return to the building?
There's, based on our survey, there's about 1,000 parents who disagree. There is no rush. The reason we had talked about January 4th, if you can recall, that's the date that I gave you 4 months ago. So at this point, what I realize is that everyone, of course, had their opinion about full remote or hybrid. And there are a lot of parents out there who want their children in school. So we are going to take the time that is necessary to safely return to school. So I think the third marking period, based on where we began last March, is not a rush to get back. However, if the environment is not safe, based on the numbers and the COVID-19 positive cases, then we will not return. I'm going to follow the numbers. I'm going to follow the science. I'm going to communicate as I have been on a regular basis with the health department as well as the mayor's office. And if those numbers and incidents continue to rise, then we will not return under any circumstances. However, if we are in a position where the buildings are ready and the numbers decline, then we have an obligation to return to school, particularly if we certify that the building is safe and it's time to go back. So I understand the question, but at this point, isn't a rush. I think we have demonstrated that the district is willing to take the necessary steps to make sure that if and when we return, we want to do it as safely as possible.
Next question. Will there be support in the room with the teachers to support those learners who are online? It is very challenging to host both in-person and virtual learning at the same time.
Well, yes and no. I don't want you to shortchange my teachers. We have good teachers out there, and there are people that I know continue to do so and multitask all the time. Being able to teach, just like in the classroom where you break your classroom down into 3 different groups, it's pretty much the same. You have to multitask and you have to be able to design your classroom so that you meet the needs of all of the students. So at this point, I don't anticipate that being that much of a problem. But then on the other hand, you have to remember aides will only be in the classroom where they are required. And again, remember we talked about we are in the same situation we were if we were in a regular school setting face-to-face. If that classroom requires an aide, then that classroom will have an aide. If that student requires a one-on-one aide, that student will have that one-on-one aide. So everything is pretty much the same. Again, I know we're in a situation that is different as a result of this pandemic, but when we come to school, we're going to maintain as much normalcy as we possibly can. So aides, where they would normally be, will be available. Students who require an aide will have an aide. And we're not just going to put aides in classrooms where they're not necessarily needed, but we're going to do our very best. However, for the first time, I would like to report that we are looking at an opportunity to create some mentors/tutors for the students. So if we get whatever number of teachers who apply for this new program that we're putting out very soon, then we will have enough teachers to provide some tutoring for those young people who need additional assistance. We understand where we are. We understand the issues, the problems that have occurred. We understand all of the things that are happening academically. So we're going to try to put some additional services in place to try to enhance where we are. I understand that this is not a perfect situation, but I only use this example to clarify where we are. What's happening in Winslow is not unique to any other school district in the country. Everybody is dealing with this situation because it's new to all of us. We are all in this together. And I know you've heard that cliche 1,000 times. So we are going to do as a school district whatever we can to help those young people who may need some additional assistance by providing those mentors/tutors. Again, for our special needs students and for those classes that need aides, we're going to provide those students with the assistance. Now, there's another issue that I do know that I raised back in August, and that is the company that was providing us with those aids and resources had an issue because many of those individuals were not available because of the pandemic. So we're going to do what we can to provide those services, but we're going to make every effort to put an aid where that aid is supposed to be.
Next question. Would you consider half days so students who are remote aren't on the computer for a lengthy amount of time? How will breakfast and lunches be handed out, and where will the students and teachers eat, especially with social distancing?
Well, let me answer the first question. That is, and I think I've said it several times, I am not going to modify the academic or school day. I'm not modifying the school day. We're talking about children not getting enough. We're talking about students who aren't getting what they would normally get. So why would I modify the day to even cut in half what they're getting now? So the modification of the academic day or schedule is not a recommendation I'm going to make. As far as, I think you mentioned something about the lunches or something, or
how are they lunches and breakfasts be handed out?
Well, in the elementary grades, we will feed as many young people in the classroom as we possibly can. And that's only at the elementary level. As the youngsters get older, we get to the larger schools, then those young people will have to go to the cafeteria. The cafeteria has always been available for breakfast in our schools, and we will use those cafeterias as well as other large spaces where we can provide breakfast and lunch. We'll use those spaces too to cut down on the number of young people in one place. But for the most part, in our elementary schools, particularly our lower elementary schools, we will try to provide as many of their meals in the classroom as we possibly can. But the cafeterias will be used for breakfast and lunch where possible.
Will there be a staff survey on how many are planning on returning or have health issues or concerns like the one filled out at the beginning of the year?
Well, we tried that once before, but we ran into a situation where we received that information that the teachers did not legally have an obligation to provide us with that information. So we didn't do a second survey. We don't want to infringe on anyone's rights or due process. So if we've been told that the teachers do not have to give us that information, then there's nothing we can do. The only thing we can do at this point is wait until school opens that first beginning of the third marking period and see how many of those teachers show up. We did put out a letter from the Department of Human Resources. We put a letter out to all the teachers and asked them, if you aren't able to come to work and you will be requesting medical leave of any kind, you must have that letter returned to our offices by December the 15th, because any type of leave that a teacher will take must be board approved. The letter stated that if we receive it by the 15th, then we will present it to the board on the 22nd for approval. We only received a handful. So therefore, if a teacher is not taking a medical leave approved by the board, it is my anticipation that all of the teachers will be returning.
Do you plan to survey the parents about their experience with online learning? While teachers have been hard at work, let us not forget the parents who are working equally as hard to support their children, knowing the full experience from both the staff and the parents should drive the decisions being made.
Right. We can do a survey at the end of the school year for the parents to provide us with that information. I'm quite sure there's a lot to be shared. There are a lot of experiences out there. I've had an opportunity to speak with some parents. So yes, I don't have a problem with that recommendation, Mr. Shaw. I think we can learn a lot from what the parents would like to share with us. So sure, we can do that.
What type of mask is allowed?
If you go back again, ladies and gentlemen, if you go back to our website and you will see the state approved reopening plan, the masks were explained in detail. So again, that's just so that you can get as much information on the mask as possible. The school district will be providing cloth masks and the paper mask. I'm not sure, it's not paper. I'm not sure the material, but we do have masks. We have cloth masks. We purchase cloth masks for staff and students. As you recall, we receive cloth masks from the Department of Health, about 5,000 of those. So we have enough masks. Now, in the beginning, our plan talked about individuals wearing the scarf type mask. That has been approved by the board in our plan. There will be some shields, but the shields are only for those young people who are in our special education classes who have sensitivity to wearing a cloth mask or any type of material mask. There will be some shields. We have purchased some shields, but they are only for those youngsters in those special areas who have some type of reaction to the cloth mask. But we do have enough masks available, and we would anticipate that everyone wear those masks properly from the time they get on the school bus and during the school day, and when they return home. There will be some mask breaks during the school day at the direction of the teacher, but those masks must be worn at all times. So yes, the school district, we do have masks for our staff and students.
I just want to make sure the parent that asked about if the Chromebooks are, the child's responsible about bringing the Chromebooks to school, you did answer that question, and you said that they are supposed to leave them at home?
Yes, leave them at home because I want to monopolize the face-to-face instruction. And the other thing is, you have them little people dragging those computers, laptops back and forth to school. By the time we get back in June or July, 90% of them will be in need of repair. Yeah. Plus, I forgot mine. I didn't. So at this point, it's easier for us to take advantage of the face-to-face instruction where the teacher had many options available to them to instruct those young people. And it also gives us an opportunity for them not to have computer FaceTime, as I referred to one of the earlier questions. So no, when you come to school in a hybrid model, you do not have to bring your Chromebooks. And that will give them an opportunity to take advantage of that teacher's presence, and also in the long run, minimize the opportunities for them to either drop them or somebody stole it or whatever it may be. You know, those things we deal with on a regular basis. So I think that will help us all in the long run.
The next question is, why can't we skip lunch like other school districts do?
Because I started to be facetious because I know we always being compared by other school districts because that's not what we have in our plan. And at this point, if we skip lunch, are you asking them to not have lunch?
No, they're asking about giving bag lunches at the end of the day. I'm sorry, I didn't complete the sentence because all of a sudden I had a ring in my ear.
That won't work for me because at the end of the day at the high school, for a student who starts at 7:19 and we won't give them a bag lunch until 1:38. And the little people, for example, I'm talking about a full day of instruction. You mean the little people will have to come to school all day and don't have any lunch? No, that's off the. My feeling is no. And yes, some school districts are doing some things. Winslow Township is going to do it another way. And at this point, this is my recommendation based on our discussions with the reorganization teams, the leadership teams, with the building principals. We are going to run our schools as normal as possible. And we're going to have those normal breaks during the school day, because I think at this point, it works better for us. And I think that our children, we're looking forward to that lunch break, as well as the teachers, we're looking for that lunch break, that planning time. All these things are there for a purpose. And I promised the parents in this community back in August that we are going to try to maintain as much as possible a normal education for these children as we can. And lunch is a large part of that. So we're running schools from A to Z as we always have, and lunch and all the other activities that are in their schedule, I'm expecting them to follow that schedule accordingly. so that it will resemble what they have become used to during a regular situation before the pandemic.
Do we have anything in place for a child with an IEP that is supposed to have in-classroom help, for example, an aid on an educational level? My son has an IEP and has always had in-class support, and while the teachers help, it's not the same.
Right. Well, I think we responded to that question before. So if the child's in a hybrid model and he or she is in school and they had a one-on-one aid or assistance, that assistance will be provided to that child while they're in school.
I'm not sure this is a question. If the school closes down for 2 weeks because of an outbreak, will you require everyone to get tested for COVID? And if the tests are negative, will it be able to return to school? If not, will you be doing temperature checks at the very least?
No. The contact tracing is done for a reason. And if you were not within 6 feet of that person for 15 minutes over a 24-hour period, because that's what they consider close contact. They changed the terminology. You have to be within 6 feet of the infected person for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period. Now, example, if you're in room A on the first floor and I'm in room B on the second floor, there's no way that there's any close contact. That's why they do the tracing. And the tracing is to identify those individuals who may have come in close contact with the infected person. So no, only those people who are infected will have to go out and quarantine. However, there have been an example, since we're talking about other schools, there have been schools where a student was infected. No one was contracted that virus while that student was there. So only the student was home quarantined for 14 days and the entire school continued. The only time, again, if you have a spread, only those individuals who contracted that virus will stay home for the 14 days. And if it's one where the whole school's been closed down, we close the entire school down for 14 days because at that point you have a spread.
I'm going to try to combine a couple of these into one question for you, Dr. Poteet.
Yes.
Special education students are 4 days a week or only 2, and live stream is every day except for Wednesdays. So we'll take those 2 into one and let you answer them, and then I got something about preschool as soon as I get back to the question.
Mr. Shaw, would be helpful if you just give me one question at a time.
Okay.
Because I don't want to forget any of the questions as we go along. Let me do the special education.
Okay.
Special education students, not every special education student will do 4 days. Only those students that we identify, and these are our students of the greatest need, those youngsters who need additional services. Those are the ones that we're talking about could possibly come 4 days a week. We have other special education students on the other end of the spectrum who do not need the 4 days a week. So therefore, it's not for all special education students. It's only for those students who qualify and who have those needs will be the ones for 4 days a week. What was the next question?
The next question was, can you explain the live streaming for the whole district? Is it every day except for Wednesday?
Yes, because Wednesday is a full remote day for everyone.
Okay. And then the preschool children that don't have slots that would be given full remote instruction?
Yes.
I want you to clarify that. Okay.
Yes, those young people, because of space, will still be able to read services at home remotely.
Okay. How will the classes work that need to have their masks off? Example, choir, public speaking. Also, what if a child goes hybrid and starts feeling uncomfortable continuing the hybrid, that they have to wait till the end of the marking period to go back to full virtual?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. If you are in a hybrid situation, hybrid model, you have to wait until the end of the marking period. Just think about it. If you can have 200, 300, 400, you're talking about a nightmare of trying to keep up with it. Kids coming in and out, the teacher trying to maintain a grade book. They're there one day, they're gone, then they may change their mind, want to come back. We're talking about consistency in an orderly environment, and you have to give the teachers an opportunity to be consistent. So in that situation, you have to wait till the end of the marking period. Now, as far as cores is concerned, I will rely on, for example, the high school, Mr. Doheny. He would probably have to have smaller groups. They would have to be socially distanced. And I will rely on the music teacher's expertise on how they would want to do that. So I'm not going to begin to try to say something today and it not be accurate. And then next week you say, well, Dr. Poteet, you said. But I will say this, of course, you can't go to choir and sing with a mask. So I would ask the music teacher, of course, to have smaller classes. And that's why we have the hybrid model, that they make sure you have the social distancing and try to accommodate that program as best we possibly can. As far as having, those Christmas concerts and things like that, at this point, none of those kinds of things will occur until we feel we're in an environment where it can happen. So I would rely on the the classroom teacher to work that out with the assistance of the building.
Excuse me. How will the teachers in the lower elementary buildings be supervising young children while also trying to keep watch on the computer to monitor the kids from home?
Well, they can't monitor the children at home. The monitoring of the children, just like now. How is a teacher monitoring the children at home right now?
Okay. The next.
I mean, it's the same thing. And I know the questions are legitimate, but you have to ask yourself, the teacher, there's no way a teacher going to monitor me from the classroom and I'm at home. We are asking the parents, guardians, and those individuals who are there with the little people, because I'm more than certain these little people aren't home by themselves, to assist us in making sure that those young people. Now, when the teacher is sitting in front of the computer and addressing those young people, then sure. Just like if they were in front of the classroom, you address them. If they're not paying attention, you say that to them. But when they move away from the monitor, then they're addressing the children who's in their classroom. But I know right now for a fact, even during a regular classroom, every teacher is not sitting in front of the computer the entire period without giving those children independent assignments where they can work independently. I mean, again, that's not good teaching. Good teaching is being able to put children in a place where they can work independently and also supervise, delegate, supervise, teach, supervise, move away as they normally would do in the classroom, where they break their classroom up into small groups, depending on whatever they're teaching, the ability of the students, and so forth. So those different teaching techniques still apply to remote learning. So again, when I sound like I'm resembling the regular school year with the remote learning that we're doing now, absolutely, because teaching is teaching. A little more challenging, of course, remotely, but the process is still the same.
All right. The next question is, will there be any Chromebooks in the classroom for our in-class students? Because most Chromebooks were sent home when we went full remote, and more went out as time went on, because the CDC is still not recommending paper activities at this time.
Well, the CDC doesn't recommend paper activities in the classroom. They may be recommending paper activities when people are home for remote. But if I'm sitting in the classroom with students, then as a classroom teacher, I have many options available to me, and the student doesn't necessarily have to be sitting behind a computer. So I understand, and first of all, of course, I was a teacher. I've observed many teachers over the years, and I don't want my parents to think that this is an impossible task. Students don't need to come to school and sit behind a computer when they're sitting behind a computer every day at home. So let's think about that. So for them to come to school, I want them to maximize the face-to-face instruction that the teacher's providing while they're there. And of course, there are many options available to that classroom teacher.
The next question, it's about the teachers being aware of this plan, and when the school reopening plan, the last time, they weren't aware of it until they listened to the meetings. Are they aware of it now?
Okay. If any teachers are here or listening in, they're only a phone call away from their building principals. They didn't necessarily have to wait until tonight to ask their questions. But if there was anything said tonight that they're not aware of, I would ask that they communicate with their building principals the first thing tomorrow. Just like we've said to our parents, whenever there's an issue, the first place to go is to the building principal. Tonight, any teachers have any questions about what we're doing, they may call the building principal. However, there were teachers on our reopening committees. Do you recall, Mr. Shaw, members of the board? There were teachers on those committees. So it's not like teachers didn't have a hand in our plan. Teachers were part of that reopening committee process. But again, this far into the school year, any teachers, you have any questions, please call your building principal. And I'm more than certain they will be able to respond to any questions you may have.
Dr. Poteet, I'm going to answer this one question because I think that by now we should all know that if you're not comfortable returning to school, that you have the option to stay full remote.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one, that we're going to leave right there. How many estimated students do you think are going to be in each cohort at the high school?
Maybe about 300, give or take a few, because we're talking about over 1,500 students, 300, 340, around those numbers, because, 5 times in the 5 cohorts, that's about 300 or so. And think about it, 300 students in one school that size in a given day. Social distancing should not be a problem. Social distance should not be a problem in the hallways. Social distance should not be a problem in the cafeteria because you're only feeding a certain number of students at a time. So the cohorts are small enough to maintain the social distancing that you're implementing in all of our schools. So that's why we have the number of cohorts, so you can minimize the number of students.
Teachers' computers do not have video capability. How do we go forward from there? Is there a different platform we would use?
We are, well, most of the teachers at home, as you well know, have on their computers, because we have not had an issue where a teacher said they could not provide that service at home. We will provide the teachers who need a Chromebook in the classroom to provide that service. The district will provide that for the teachers. And if the teacher decides that he or she want to use their own device because they're more familiar with it, the teacher will have the option to use their own device.
Will there be any extra support in the classroom so fewer students fall through the cracks when one person is doing the job of 2 people? Talking about the teacher.
Well, no. At this point, see how this works, and then we will move forward. Now, I know everyone is expecting me to have all the answers tonight particularly in this new pandemic era. So if I don't have all of the answers tonight for everyone, I just want you to know that based on where we are and the experiences that we are encountering, we're going to do the very best. But if you're asking me if we're going to have an aide in the classroom for every teacher, it's humanly impossible to do so, and that's not going to happen. So we're going to do our very best at this point. Again, we're still talking about a small number. So in normal circumstances, if you had 20, 25 students, now at the high school, you may be looking at anywhere from 9 to 12. So you're not working a same caseload. However, the students who are on the laptop is only going to require you to move from one location to the other like you would normally do in a teaching situation, as opposed to standing in one place or sitting behind your desk, that sort of thing. So based on where I am, the experience I have, the number of students in the classroom, right now, one teacher can accommodate the youngsters who are face-to-face if they all come at the same time, and also be able to move back and forth using the computer and technology for those at home. And here's the other part that I want to emphasize again and again. Why is it, because you always use all the school districts and you come, why is it all the other teachers and all the other schools are able to do it and we can't? I can't accept that, and I don't believe that. But they're doing it. They do it every day. Now, I know it's a task. I know it's a lot of hard work, and I know it's a little more trying and stressful. I understand that, but there's nothing that's happening now for all of us that isn't stressful. Ask that parent who's home with the child for the first time, or 2 or 3 children. Is their situation stressful? Ask them, how are they doing it? Everybody have to make some adjustments to accommodate this situation we're in. It's new to all of us. So if I appear that I don't have all the answers and people will continue to question me because I don't know this or that, I understand, but I am not that prideful that I'm not going to tell you that I don't know the answer, or I don't understand, or we're going to look into it. So sure, it's new. It's going to be challenging, but I'm certain and I'm confident that we're going to be able to accomplish this, just like all the other school districts in New Jersey and all the other school districts in the state. And I am not going to put myself in the position to think that those teachers other places are better than the teachers we have in Winslow. I would never say that. So we're going to do our very best.
Going back to the preschool question, Dr. Poteet, because I think that there was some confusion with the way I asked it, because I got a response to it. They want to know if the student did not qualify for in-school instruction, can they still go full remote when
Yes.
school reopens? Okay.
If you were not selected as one of those children to come and get face-to-face instruction, you will still receive virtual full remote instruction at home. So those children will still be receiving services, whether they are part of the hybrid or not.
The next question, is there a reason students are not being temperature checked daily?
Well, there are a couple reasons in our discussions. The question would be, who's going to do it? You only have one nurse or 2 nurses. Let's say, for example, high school. You have 1,500 students, with 300 or so are coming. You only have one nurse. So other than the nurse, who's going to do it? Who's going to accept the liability of doing or manning that task? Okay. So now if you know, and you're talking about, you know, quite a few students. So taking the temperatures, being able to identify whose temperature is up, pulling this kid to the side, The next one, social distancing. We got to get them in. The day like today, for example, where it's cold, it's raining. You want to get the kids in. Who's going to be able to do that? It's a task to try to do it. So at this point, it's more feasible for us to ask our parents, if your child is sick, don't send him or her to school. That way, when they do come to school, we are going to ask ourselves that the parents have done their due diligence, and we are going to move the young people into school as quickly as possible. But as far as one nurse is concerned, it's impossible to have our nurses doing it, because our nurses have to be in her office when youngsters come, particularly those who have medications. She has to be there to take those medications. Some needs to be refrigerated. If an incident occurs while they're doing that, they would have to leave. So you have to have someone doing it. And right now, everybody in that school already has an assigned duty. Now, let me go back, Mr. Shaw, because I thought of something. Did I answer that question, Mr.
Yeah.
Shaw?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go back to the preschool, because I just thought of something. If you are presently receiving those services right now in the preschool, then you will be able to continue getting those services remotely if you weren't selected for the hybrid model. And the reason I wanted to reiterate that, you can't join now. You can't all of a sudden sign up for those services right now. If you are presently receiving services right now with the preschool teacher, and you are not a part of that hybrid model, you can still receive those services. We're not taking new people as of tonight where we increase those numbers. And I think that clarification was warranted.
Okay. The lower elementary schools, do we have enough internet capabilities to accommodate live streaming?
Yes, we do. As you do know, we do state testing certain times of the year, and all of the youngsters are online at the same time. So this will not be any more of an overload than what we've experienced. Plus, we have done so much more with our infrastructure over the years that we are confident that we can accommodate all of those computers at one time. And again, I'm confident that we can. There's no reason for me to believe that we can't do it.
I just to change of pace for a second. I just want to put, Dr. Poteet, you got a compliment for following the science, and the one parent was really complimenting you. And I want to read this one for school number 6. I just want to acknowledge that school 6 teachers are doing a fantastic job with the remote learning. My twins have Miss Parker, which my son had Miss Parker, so I know she's an outstanding teacher. And Miss Grace in 4th grade, and they are absolutely amazing. They're so patient, thoughtful, and just great.
Well, thank you, Mr. Shaw, and I appreciate that, because I know we have some good teachers out there. We've always had good teachers in our school district, and our youngsters are getting the very best education because we have good people. And I will stand on that, and I will continue to reinforce that. And I appreciate the parent making that comment, also indicating and stating that the teachers are doing a fantastic job out there. And I know that, and they need to be commended, because these are extenuating circumstances. And it is challenging for all of the teachers. And they are doing a fantastic job in spite of it. So again, I know we're going to be able to continue to move forward regardless to what model we're in.
Next one is, my child has an IEP with written in classroom support from an aide. He doesn't have the help of an aide, never had. So can we address that?
Could you repeat that question again?
It says, my child has an IEP with written in classroom support from an aide. He doesn't have the help of an aide, never had. So can we address that?
that the child does not want?
No,
They-
they're supposed to. They have an IEP for a written in classroom written in classroom support from an aide, and they've never had it, and they need it addressed.
Oh, okay, then they need to call Dr. Riccardi tomorrow if we are in school. Call Dr. Riccardi. He's the director of special services, and get that question answered. There's no way I can respond to that tonight without knowing the particulars, but Dr. Riccardi will be able to respond to that question.
Could you consider sending a link to the teachers and allow a survey to be anonymous for them?
We can, but that won't help us, because if you're anonymous, then I still don't know who's coming and who's staying, right?
Mhm.
You know, if it was anonymous, the only thing that will the only thing I would know would be how many are coming, but I won't know whether or not I'm missing a first grade teacher at school 1, a third grade teacher at school number 3. So, you know, that's why it needs to be specific, and I need to know, because if I don't know how many elementary teachers, keep in mind that the number of teachers that return will also have an impact on what services we are going to be able to provide. So I need to know. At the middle school, let's say, for example, the Spanish teacher isn't coming. I need to know that I don't have a Spanish teacher at the middle school, so we'll know how to address that. So for it to be anonymous won't help me, because I need to be subject specific. I need to know where they're located so that we can address the need. You can't address anonymously because it's not helpful at this point.
Next question is, why would we wait to do an end of the year survey about parents' experiences with remote learning? Why wouldn't we do a midpoint survey?
If the parents are asking for that to happen, I don't have a problem with it. I'm only responding to the questions as they are posed. And as I stated earlier, I know more questions will come as I respond, because either I'm not giving you all the information, I'm missing information, but that's not a problem. If the parents feel that strong that we need to provide a survey to find out what their concerns are or the issues they are addressing, that's easy. Mr. Shaw, members of the board, that's easy. It's not that I didn't want to do one, but that's fine. That's not a problem at all. As a matter of fact, I wish all of my situations were as easy as this one.
In regards to shields for special education, are they needing to wear masks as well? And is it necessary to request them individually?
Well, it will be individual requests. The reason the students are wearing the shields because they may have some sensitivity issues with the mask. So no, we're not going to ask them to wear a mask and a shield. It's either or, because the reason they're not wearing the mask may have something to do with a health issue, a skin sensitivity issue, or whatever it may be. So that's why the mask, the shields would be an option. And again, we didn't buy shields for everybody. It will only be available to those young people who need them based on their situation. And we can look at the IEPs and things like that and have those conversations with the parents before that's done. But no, they can't wear a mask and a shield. That is not required.
Let me see this one. I may have missed this question, but you said you're not going to excuse the uniform policy this year, correct?
I said that I was not going to make that recommendation to the board, which basically is saying, no, I'm not changing the uniform policy or recommending changes to the uniform policy.
Then their follow-up question was, why can't you excuse it just for this year? Because those with younger kids may not be able to buy clothes their kids may not wear when they can't be returned to stores right now.
Okay. Well, there are a couple of things. The uniform policy is a policy by the board in which I enforce. So I can't change the policy, and I'm not throwing it back at the board because I made my initial, taken my initial position in the beginning. We have in place for those parents who need financial assistance, we've set aside X number amount of dollars for parents who need assistance in the purchasing of uniforms. The parents in this community have not taken advantage of that. We've had it in place, as you know, Mr. Shaw, members of the board, we've had the financial assistance in place for maybe 4 or 5 years now, or as long as the policy's been in place. So if a parent has an issue where he or she is in a financial strain where they cannot purchase uniforms, then they may contact the business office at the administration building and see if we cannot assist them. And that's the reason, because we have tried to accommodate parents across the board in those kinds of situations.
When will parents know if their child was chosen for 4-day in person? That's a special education.
Would you repeat that again?
This is a special education question. When will parents know if their child was chosen for 4-day in person?
They can contact their building principal.
This isn't a question. How will an in-person student who becomes sick displays symptoms of COVID while in class be processed?
We have an isolation room in each of the buildings, which is required by law. If a student gets sick, now keep in mind that everybody who has symptoms will not have COVID, all right? Because when you go to a location, a doctor's office, they always ask you, do you have flu-like symptoms? So we're not going to assume that everybody who has a cough, a runny nose, or a fever has COVID. So we can go to the nurse, as we normally would do, check the student out, and the nurse can make that determination as to whether or not the child needs to be isolated and whether or not, the parent needs to come and pick the child up. But that is how we would handle in any situation. The school nurse is that person, and if that person needs to be isolated, as well as a staff person needs to be isolated, and we will send them to the isolation room. Now, Mr. Shaw, I did see in the chat, and I'm going to speak to that and just move on. It indicated that my response to the dress code was a scapegoat and blamed it on the board. And I'm going to assume the person who made that statement doesn't understand how the process works. The school board develops policies. The superintendent enforces policies. The superintendent cannot change policies of the board. So in order for me to change a policy, it must go back to the board, and the majority of the board must vote in favor of that change. Then it's my responsibility to implement that change. So that's how it works. I think the truth here is that we must also make sure that we understand how the system works. And my job is to enforce all the policies of the board, including the dress code policy. Mr. Shaw.
When talking about special education students, are you taking into consideration the number of people in the room, which could include the teachers, students, and additional staff that are required by the needs of the student?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. In some cases, you could have anywhere from 16 to 20 people in a room, smaller than a regular education class that accommodates 20 to 30 people.
No, that's not true. Maybe in a normal situation, that may be the case. But in a hybrid situation where we must maintain social distancing, and half of those numbers would be in a classroom today. There are no special education classrooms where we have 20, 25 students now. No. those classrooms, and it may vary from classroom to classroom. Now, the number of students in the classroom depends on the size of the room. Now, you know, in many of our schools, the classrooms vary in size. So if you have a small class, then you may only have 5 students in that class. If you have a larger classroom, then you may have 7, 8, or 9 students in that classroom. As long as you're able to maintain social distancing in that classroom, then depending on the size of the classroom, then you're able to accommodate as many students that the classroom would accommodate. So it will vary from classroom to classroom. And it also depends on the program. Also depends on the program, because there are varying programs in special education. MD, students. So it depends on the program. So those numbers fluctuate depending on the program, the size of the classroom, the needs of the students. And that's on an individual basis, by program, by size of classroom, and by school. So that would vary.
Next one is about Christmas concerts, etc. can be done virtually. Is it possible that we can do it at our school?
At this point, no. We are not going to, because the spread of the disease happens more readily when people congregate. And we're not in a position, particularly with the health of our environment and our community, we're not in a position to put X number of youngsters on a stage and have them singing at this point. So at this point, my recommendation for the entire school district, we're not in a position where we can have large numbers and performing programs. Plus, indoor sizes have been cut by the governor to a minimum. So at this
Dr.
point, and
Petit,
again,
I hate to interrupt you, but they're doing it virtually. No one needs to be in a room next to each other. They are all individually at their own homes.
okay, well, then my interpretation of virtually was screwed. I was thinking the program was being zoomed out virtually, not necessarily 30 kids virtually and the teachers doing it, that sort of thing. And you're correct. So my interpretation was based on what I thought the question was, but you are correct, because that is a different way of doing it. You are correct. Yes, you are correct. Now, as far as that is concerned, I have seen virtual concerts, and if the teacher is able to pull something together such as that, I don't see a problem with that, Mrs. Sad. I don't see a problem with that at all.
I know we've talked about this before at board meetings, but can you clarify the number of Chromebooks? Because a parent was asking about at one of our reopening meetings that you said that we had enough for every student plus 1,000 extra.
No, that didn't come from me. I remember it being said, but that didn't come from me. All right. But I know we have given out over 2,000 Chromebooks. And at this point, every student, starting with those of the greatest need who qualified for a Chromebook, they received a Chromebook. We have, again, as you recall, teachers who will be returning who will also need Chromebooks if they do not have a Chromebook with the camera. So we are accommodating them. But that was not a statement that I made, but I do recall that statement being made.
Dr. Poteet?
Yes.
This is Ms. Peterson.
Yes, Ms.
Also, we talked about the Chromebooks that hadn't been returned. There were a few of those, and those that are in need of repair too. So
yes,
that takes the numbers down too.
Now, yes, ma'am. And let me speak to what Mrs. Peterson said. We have Chromebooks in our buildings. Some of them are in need repair, and some of them are not compatible to what we're doing. Now, some of those older Chromebooks we have, sure, we have some of them, but if those Chromebooks aren't compatible to what we're doing, then they're not useful at this point. We can't give a child a Chromebook that's not compatible, then therefore they won't be able to conduct or complete their lessons or log in, whatever the issue may be. But we do have some of the older Chromebooks in our schools, but they're not compatible.
When the high school goes back to a full day schedule with the day ending at 1:38, will the extra help sessions currently offered at 1 p.m. still be offered when the teacher's day ends at 2?
Yes, they are still they're in place now and they will continue. Yes.
What are the other options for teachers to have if they cannot print worksheets or workbooks?
Excuse me?
What are the other options for teachers to have if they cannot print worksheets or have workbooks?
Whoever that teacher may be, if he or she will call the building principal tomorrow, that building principal will be more than happy to speak with them about the options that are available. But Mr. Shaw, I am not aware of a teacher in the classroom who can't provide a worksheet. They can print worksheets inside the classroom. I mean, no one ever said a teacher in a classroom couldn't give their children worksheets. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. But at this point, I mean, that's something that's been done for years and continue to and will be done. So if you are a classroom teacher, I don't think that directive have ever been said that you can't provide your kids with a worksheet. But again, and I know that some of our teachers are on tonight, but if teachers have questions, what they're hearing from me, they're going to hear from their building principals, but they'll get more detailed information because they are the ones who are providing those services. So again, a phone call to the building principal will resolve that situation for whomever that teacher may be.
I'm pretty sure we answered most of this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Will lower elementary students who are full remote be given more live instruction while at home? My second grader at school 4 currently has an hour and 15 minutes a week of live instruction for math, 60 minutes a week for reading. There's currently no live instruction for any of his other subjects. Will that change now?
I would like to say it will probably be modified somewhat because, as we mentioned earlier, the dual role of the building teacher. But I think again, if the parent would reach out to Mrs. Clement, she would probably be able to give her more specifics. I'm in a position to do more of the generalizations of what we're doing. But if parents want more specifics, more detail, then the building principal would be that person to call.
Dr. Poteet, can you just, as the parent who asked about the special education shields, or the shields for special education, in need of wearing masks as well, and is it necessary to request them individually? Can you re-answer that question because they didn't hear it?
Yes, if we know that a child had, for example, some sensory issues, or they don't like anything on their skin, they take things off all the time, and for the most part, we already know who many of those children are. I think that's a conversation that the parent can have with the teacher and or the building principal so that we can work that out. We want to accommodate as many of those children, if not all of them, as best we possibly can, because we want them to be comfortable while they're in school. So at this point, I think it's just a matter of calling the building principal or have a conversation with the teacher, or at your next child study team meeting, or whatever that communication may be. Dr. Riccardi, those people who are in that division could be more specific. But at this point, if the parent just wanted to recommend because she already know that her child will not keep a mask on, just make the phone call to the building principal and request that shield for your child, and we'll try to accommodate you as best we can.
Another question is, how much does it cost for remote temperature takers? And there's no human contact, no risk, and it's worth the cost.
Well, we have some in our buildings now for the staff. I'm not sure how much they cost. I don't have that breakdown, but I know we purchase at least one for the small schools, 2 or 3 for the larger schools. So it wasn't a matter of not being able to afford them. It was a matter of how we can best accommodate getting the children in safely in a timely manner. So I'm not sure, Mr. Shaw, how much they cost per machine.
I can't stand and hear that nigga talk.
Either.
Have we thought about having an online parent health check system if we can't check temps? For example, there are programs where you need at least to check in and say your child is symptom free, maybe through parent portal or other options.
I haven't thought about that, Mr. Shaw, but that's something we can consider. And I would need some additional information. So whomever that person would, if they could, send me an email with some more clarification. But I haven't thought about it, but I'm not opposed to it.
There's another question on that line. Some schools are using technology where they fill out a quick survey every day. They come to school with temperature, any symptoms, any contact with someone who has tested positive. Maybe we could do something like that.
For the staff or for the students?
I would assume everybody.
So you want the little people, are they saying that they want the little people to fill out?
It doesn't clarify it, so I don't know. It doesn't clarify it at all.
Okay. Maybe if they restate that question, because I'm not sure, and I don't want to respond to the question if I don't have a clear understanding of it. Just based on what you said, if they're asking someone to fill something out every day, are they just asking, for the adults, I don't see it, or maybe the older students, but is that something they'll do every morning? If they do it in homeroom, they do it before they go to class. There are a lot of things that have to be considered. Still a lot of things that have to be done. And sometimes because all the things that we have to consider may not be apparent, it may not be as easily done. But even with that, filling out a piece of paper, that's still self-monitoring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is another one that goes along with self-monitoring. Like you were just talking about, sports can temp check daily. Other schools, parents, students are given a Google form and a QR code daily and are scanned as they come into the building. Is this possible in our schools?
Well, anything is possible. What school district are they referring to? Because if it's Camden County, it's just a matter of me calling my colleague and asking them how they're doing that.
If the community member that asked that question,
or they can send me an email tomorrow, Mr. Shaw.
That's what I was going to ask. If they could send it, anybody who has suggestions about the self-monitoring or anything to do with a survey about the on the monitoring of the COVID testing or temp checks, please email Dr. Poteet with your suggestions, because any improvement that we can do to help keep our students and staff safe is greatly appreciated.
Okay, based on the questions, I'm hearing that there are some parents out there who want us to take the children's temperature every day. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's, yeah. There was quite a few asking about the temperature checks.
Dr. Poteet,
yes.
I mentioned that. I was the one who said that about the survey. It is an app, and the parents take the temperature and fill out all the questions each morning, and then they get a green pass that the kid can attend school. It's kind of like that.
Now, how does the child get the green pass? They print it out at home or something?
No, it's actually an app and it's like on the phone. So I guess it's how electronically transmitted to the school. So they have that information as well. It's a Crisis Go app. And I know Bishop Eustace uses that app.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Our teachers and staffs in schools 3, 2, 5, 4 are all getting compliments and are getting praise for the amazing jobs that they're doing. So, it's really good that our parents are really, praising our teachers for the excellent jobs that they're doing. So that's really great job to all of our staff in our district for what they're doing right now during this difficult time. Let's see. Those apps all exist but cost money. The district is about protecting our kids, provided it doesn't cause budget issues. That administration is going to pay for itself. Priorities. Let's see. Thank you.
Okay.
Is it possible to have some teachers designated for remote learning students only? That way, those students can receive the same level of instruction that they're currently receiving.
That will only occur if we have fewer number of students coming to school where you can collapse some classes and free those teachers up. But again, we won't know that until we get accurate numbers, and that's why we're having that last survey in January. For example, if teacher A has 4 students and teacher B only has 3 in the same grade, then we can collapse that class, and now that frees a teacher. So one, until we know how many students are coming, that will have an impact on it. And 2, until we know how many teachers are coming, that will have an impact, because it could be it could go both ways. You may not have enough teachers to even do the hybrid model. And then we have a decision to make, because one of the things that my colleagues are sharing with me who've already tried to do the hybrid model and face-to-face is the lack of having teachers, the number of teachers who going out on quarantine, can't get substitutes for the teachers. So the teacher component is a major part of everything we're able to do. So that is a question that I cannot answer specifically tonight, because I don't know what the numbers will look like on the teacher end as well as on the student end. But if it does work out, sure, that's a possibility. Sure, it could happen.
The reentry plan, can it be reposted and shared with parents? This call is lengthy and exhausting for everyone. We, the parents and community, have so many questions because winter break begins next week, and we're just hearing many of the details for this plan about January tonight.
Okay. Well, the plan is still on the website, and we have not deviated from the plan itself. So the only thing that's changed in the plan is that, as I said earlier, the high school students are now 2 days a week, just like everyone else. And as far as everything else, it's pretty much the same. We will modify the services for full remote students, where we're going to do some live streaming. But other than that, the plan is there, and a review of the plan will answer probably a lot of your questions. But we have not changed the plan, and I am responding according to what we already have in place.
Is there going to be before and after or aftercare?
Yes, Mr. Mills have already put that in place, and in those schools where that service is normally provided, yes, it will be available.
What about school sports? Are we still going to have them?
Yes, no one has school sports are available. The only way school sports will be placed on hold be based on the spread of the virus in our community, and or the state or the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Association make a ruling that they will no longer be available across the state. But that is something that will only have to come down to us. But as far as the school district offering athletic programs, clubs, all of those things are in place and will remain in place.
Is the town hall being recorded and will be available after tonight?
Yes, it is being recorded.
Is it possible to provide staff additional voluntary stipends to temp check daily?
That is something that have to be negotiated because that is something that is not a part of their daily duties. And anytime you ask them to do something beyond their contracted responsibilities, that's something that would need to be negotiated. So I can't say yes or no at this point. Right now, I would say no because it's not something that they would normally do and is outside of their contracted responsibilities.
Can we please hire part-time employees to assist VPs with temp checks and health survey every day?
At this point, we have not considered that as an option. But like all the other questions that are being asked to me that we haven't considered, I'll just write that down as a consideration. Mr. Shaw, let me just ask one thing of you. I've been at it since 6 o'clock. It's 8:30.
Yep.
At some point, and I know there may be
I only have like one more question left.
Yeah, there may be other questions out there, but at some point, I'll never be able to answer everything tonight. And
there's only one more.
Yes, because I have physically, biologically, a couple needs on this end too.
Yeah, there's only one more question left.
Thank you, sir.
And so, are students required to take this new vaccine to return to school? And also, moving forward, can the remote students permanently be remote even after the school year moving forward?
First question, the lawmakers in the state of New Jersey are considering the COVID vaccine for students. And right now it's just a consideration, and New Jersey is not the only state that's considering the COVID vaccine for students. They are also want to make it one of those vaccines that children normally have to have as a part of their medical records. But the catch to all of this is the COVID vaccine right now has been tested for adults only. They haven't done any testing for children 12 years old and under. So those tests are ongoing. We're not sure whether or not or when it will be available, just like we don't know when it will be available to the general population. But the lawmakers are considering the vaccine for all students upon returning to school. And with that note, since we are moving toward our opening, beginning of the third marking period, for those families out there who have not gotten their children all their shots that they would normally have to return to school, I'm going to encourage you to do that, because that's one thing that we will be checking anyway to make sure that all the children and students who are returning to school must have all their shots. And if you haven't done so, please, make those appointments so those children can meet those medical requirements.
Dr. Poteet, did we finish the pre-submitted questions?
We've already answered all of them. Mr. Shaw, if you give me a moment to take a look and see, because I think we've covered everything tonight based on the questions you've asked. Let me take a quick look. Yes. And some of them I think we've probably answered at least 5 times.
All right. Let me just double check, make sure nothing came in just now. Trying to make sure that I'm not reading any comments. I think that's it. Yeah, the only thing that's coming in is are we deciding on a reopening date tonight, which I believe we are.
Yes, my recommendation to the board tonight would be that we start reopen schools, the beginning of the 3rd marking period, which is February 1st. And I'd also like to say for those who are here, I will have my real talk with the superintendent on Monday. And we normally try to answer as many questions as possible during that real talk or any concerns you may have. So that will give some of the parents who may have additional questions over the weekend to join in Monday night on the real talk. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Shaw,
Yes, Madam President.
you've completed your questions, and Dr. Petit, I want to thank both of you. I'm sure that, and I hope that you both have a large glass of water, a large bottle of water sitting right next to you, because you both have been continuously talking for over 2.5 hours. But that's what we do, because we are here to service our district. And as indicated at the beginning of this town hall meeting, there were 4 reasons primarily that we came before you and we had this town hall meeting. 3 of the reasons were basically information that came from Dr. Poteet, but the first and primary one had to do, board members, if you recall, with whether or not we're going to address Dr. Poteet's recommendation with regards to when we should reopen the school. And Dr. Poteet, before I ask for a motion, I'm just going to ask you one more time to restate your recommendation.
I am recommending to the board that the school district reopen February 1st, 2021.
Board members, you've heard Dr. Poteet's recommendation. Are there any comments before we take this to a vote? Board members, are we still with me? Just put your hand up like this so I can see, because I can see you all. Okay, good. That's what I needed. Okay, thank you. At this point, board members, I'm asking for a motion as it relates to Dr. Poteet's recommendation.
Peterson, I move that we start the reopening of schools, 3rd marking period, Monday, February the 1st, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second, Martin.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Would there be any further questions or comments?
I just want to make a comment based on the information we have heard over the past 2 weeks. This will allow us the opportunity for the district to get feedback from January 6th when the parents will go into the portal to see if the unsure will move to hybrid or remote, and also allow for the 44 motors to be in place. So safety issues.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Board members, before I call for the vote, any other comments on this recommendation? I see you shaking your head, Ms. McClendon. Okay, board members, hearing none. It has been moved by Ms. Peterson and second by Ms. Martin. I'm ready to put it to a vote. Roll call, please.
Mr. Blake,
Yes.
Miss Dredden,
Yes.
Miss Martin,
Yes.
Miss McClendon,
Yes.
Miss Mitchell. Okay. Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Miss Thomas,
Yes.
Miss Peterson,
Yes.
and Miss Pitts.
Ms. Boyle, is that you? I'm glad that you made it home safely. My vote is yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Again, to all of those who joined us this evening, we thank you. This will not be our first and only town hall meeting. As Dr. Poteet stated earlier, this is our first virtual town hall meeting. However, this is our second town hall meeting as a board, just to remind everyone that in May of 2018, we actually had our first town hall meeting and it was in person. But this is indeed our first virtual town hall meeting. And I'm so pleased that we had as many, well over 150 residents, teachers, everyone, stakeholders who joined us. So at this point,
Mrs. Pitts?
Yes, Dr.
I have one other item. The next virtual town hall meeting is scheduled for March. We have yet to designate a date, but the next town hall meeting is in March. And I want to thank Mrs. Lewis Sands. She called me. Remember last week the CAC asked us about Miss Sarah Gordy.
Yes, the plaque. Dr. Poteet, are you still with us?
I
think we lost him.
Yeah,
I think we lost him. I think we lost Dr. Poteet. I think he was about to give us information with regards to the location of the plaque, because I believe Miss Michelle Shaheda at last week at our board meeting called as a result of receiving a phone call from Mrs. Sands to inform us that Mrs. Sands said that there is a plaque. So I thank you very much, Ms. Shaheda, for calling in and giving us that information. But so therefore, board members, I think we have lost Dr. Poteet, but I'm sure that he will continue. He will give us that information next week at our regularly scheduled board meeting, which will be held Tuesday, December 22nd at 6 p.m. So therefore, board members, at this time, I'm
Madam
asking-
President,
Yes, Ms. McClendon.
may I say something, please?
Yes.
I wanted to say something regarding, there was a lot of concerns about uniforms when we return back to school. And Dr. Poteet made a statement, which he was absolutely correct. It would have to be the recommendation of the board to make any changes. Now, as the concerns were coming from parents about financial, circumstances, our students have been out of school since what, March of last year?
Yes.
And, we knew that and I'm saying as a parent because, I'm a parent as well in the district, we knew, that our students were not returning in September.
Yes,
a
indeed.
lot of our students have been home this time, and it may be something for the board to consider temporarily if the students return back to school in February
I'm answering Ms. McClendon's question now. So after this, we may just close the meeting.
I'm gonna wait for Ms. Pitts to finish on the phone because I want her to be able to hear what I'm saying.
Okay, Dr. Poteet, I will. Okay. Just board members, just so that you know, that was Dr. Poteet who called me on the phone to say that he lost power.
Okay.
And so that's why we lost him. And so, Ms. McClendon, I did hear your statement. And
so what I was saying is that maybe that is something for us to may consider, because even at this time, if we do return to school at the beginning of February, some parents may not have gone out to buy school clothing for their kids. And I'm going to say, for example, myself, because we knew that our kids wasn't returning in September. And a lot of kids may have not be able to fit the clothes they wore last year. So from a financial point of view, it could be a circumstance where it becomes overwhelming for parents at the last minute to try to find school clothes. The one thing I know that the NJSBA has been asking us as school board members is to be flexible depending on the situation that comes our way. Not saying that we have to change the dress code moving forward, but as a temporary thing, maybe to consider figuring out something else that wouldn't put a hardship on parents if we return to school in February. I just ask that the board think about that and see if there's something that we can do to make it an easy transition back to school if we go back come February the 1st, for parents not to have to worry about what their child is going to wear regarding uniform. So I just asked the board for us to consider that, because some of us do have kids that are in the district. And like I said, myself, I have not gone school shopping because we knew way prior to September that school was not reopening. So I think there's something for us to think about and try to be flexible to the needs of our parents as well, if we can. And then starting the next school year, we go back to being in the uniform. So let's think about that and see how we can make it a win-win for everybody.
Point well taken, Ms. McClendon. And as you know, as Dr. Poteet, who I think has rejoined us, as Dr. Poteet has stated.
I'll understand you much better if I can get familiar with the way you talk. I need your permission to help.
Now, I don't know where that came from. It sounds like something that was automated, but let's just move on and continue. As I was addressing Mr. McClendon, point well taken. And certainly, as you know, also as a member of the policy committee itself, that is something certainly that we will absolutely take into consideration. And yes, I do understand and I do agree that NJSBA has asked all boards across the state to be flexible, but they also want all boards to make sure that our district is well run and that we're accountable. And so that's what we also want to keep in mind. So therefore, with regards to your statement, Ms. McClendon, and again, as a member of our policy committee, we absolutely will take that into consideration. And I'm asking the board to consider that for a week. We have a week. Our last meeting certainly is December 22nd. And if indeed any consideration, if any temporary changes are going to be made, then we need to let our parents know at our December 22nd meeting. And I say if, because I do not want to go on record as saying that yes, that we're going to make changes. No, what I'm asking this board members is for you to consider that. And when you come and present your rationale, please give a solid and sound reasoning for whatever you decide. And is that fair?
Madam President?
Yes, Ms. Peterson.
Wouldn't it be appropriate that the recommendation comes from the policy committee to us next week?
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. And so I'm looking at our policy members, Ms. McClendon, Ms. Dredden, and Ms. Martin. So we will certainly, before next Wednesday, have a discussion so that as the policy committee, we can bring forth our recommendation to the total board at the December 22nd meeting. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fitz, yes, I had to call my resident technician who showed me how to log in using my cell phone.
Okay.
So, I just want the parents to know we all at the mercy of our 7th graders, right? So she got me back on, and I'm good to go. It was important for me to say that Miss Louise Sands called me last week after our last meeting and told me where the plaque was for Miss Sarah Gordy. Mr. Morella did find it. We have it in our possession. We may have to, clean it up a little bit, but it is the original plaque dedicated to Mrs. Gordy in reference to the auditorium. So we do have it. I want to thank Mrs. Sands for all of her help and all the information she gave me. As soon as we get it right, then we'll be able to put it in a more appropriate place. I'm not sure why it was back there in the auditorium, but it should be in a place where it was visible so that people could see it. So I just want to let you know that we we did our research and we were successful in finding it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Poteet. Board members, at this point, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn this special town hall meeting.
Peterson, move for adjournment.
Second. Martin.
Okay, I heard three. I know Ms. Peterson made the motion to move it. Did Mr. Shaw second?
Yes.
Okay, it has been moved by Ms. Peterson and second by Ms. Shaw that we adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and enjoy the snow. This meeting is adjourned.
Madam President,
Yes.
minutes will reflect that it's Mr. Shaw. Second.
Mr. Shaw second? Is that what I said?
Mrs. Shaw. So
Did I
we'll let it be Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Shaw, I'm sorry. I thought I did say Mr. Shaw. No? Okay, well, let the record
And
show.
I'll confess that automated came out of my computer. And I was sitting watching thinking, I hope this thing is on mute.
Okay, thank you. Let the record show that it was Mr. Shaw that second.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, good night.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Was it all in favor, Madam President?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm all in favor.
Aye.
For the record, all in favor?
Yes.
Any nays? No. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Oh.